Hello and welcome to 5 Year Club video number 148. Tonight's all about time management because there are many billionaires, but nobody with a billion days. But a billion seconds is about 31 years. So if you're lucky, you can get about like 3 billion seconds in your life. That's how it goes. All right. So if we don't put thought into our time, then other people are going to decide what happens to our time for us, and what they decide is going to displace stuff that we actually want to do. It's very similar to money in that way. If we don't put thought into our money, the money is just going to float away and leave and pay for things that we don't really want that much. So we can think a little bit about, what are the things we need to do that are going to relate to our financial success in the long run. We need to connect with other people. We need to stay healthy, which involves good food, good exercise. We need to read and learn. We also need to practice skills and apply what we read and learn. So, whatever that is in your profession, negotiation, coding, if you're in medicine, you got to know anatomy or read journals or whatever it is. And finally, we need to make time for sleep, because if you don't get enough sleep, your performance is going to be bad and you're also just going to be unhappy. So the next part are kind of questions to ask yourself when you are deciding how to divide up your day. Number one is, what are you going to do today? What are you going to make time for? What are the tasks that are associated with your long-term goals? You need to know the long-term goals and then sit down and take some time and write down the things you need to do right now to achieve them. Once you have this big list of tasks of stuff that you want to get done, then you can ask yourself, can you combine any of them? So can you connect with people while getting exercise? Or can you learn something during a time of day like when you're commuting in your car, where it's just like something that you can't avoid doing? What tasks do you have in your mix that you have to do on a regular basis that are not contributing towards your long-term goals? Can you drop them and replace them with tasks that are? Are there any tasks or things that you do during the day that you need to temporarily stop? So maybe you can't stop them forever, but if you stop them in the next month, it's going to be okay. All right, the next one for me is like one of the biggest things, and I think it's something that we don't think about enough. When you are kind of planning on a calendar all the stuff you can do on a given day, a lot of times you don't take into account the time of day and therefore kind of your mood and how much food you're going to have in your system at that point. And as a result, something is scheduled for a bad time of day and you don't end up doing it very well. Very common thing in college is for people to schedule classes too early. They're still asleep. They don't go to the class. It doesn't work out. I know for me, I've learned very well over time that my brain operates best in the morning. So I should really schedule all my intellectual work closer to the morning. And since exercise doesn't really require any thinking, I can stick that in around the nighttime, and that's like the best thing for me. Other people are more night owls, so it really depends on what works for you. I wish I had realized this more in college and in school. I didn't really realize that I was much more of a morning thinker until I started working. And if I had realized that in college, I likely would have scheduled things differently and I would have been more efficient with my time. All right, number 3, time limits. How much time are you going to spend on something in a day? Sometimes it's more effective to schedule a smaller amount of time for something than a longer amount of time, because that smaller amount of time could force you, if you know that you only have 30 minutes to do something, it can force you to really focus on that thing for 30 minutes. And focusing on something intensely for 30 minutes is going to be more productive than just kind of screwing around with it for an hour. I have like a Amazon Alexa. She just turned on. Good, she's off now. So, yeah, what's really convenient about that device is I can ask her to set a timer for some amount of time, and that's the amount of time I have to do whatever tasks I'm working on. And just knowing that she's going to like beep sooner or later and tell me that my time's up helps me to focus on doing that thing and meeting that deadline. Fourth one is, how are you going to remember what your schedule is? How are you going to be reminded of what you need to do on a given day? There are a bunch of different ways to do it. You can have a calendar on your phone. You can have a physical calendar. You can make out a to-do list and keep that in Google Docs. You can make out a to-do list and keep it on a piece of paper. That's typically what I do. I just have like this infinite to-do list that I use at work, and I scratch off things as I do them, and I basically look in the past 5 pages of anything that's not scratched off to decide what is the universe of things I should be doing. And if it's not in the last 5 pages, then it typically doesn't get done. Not that that's the best system, but sometimes it is, because sometimes if the thing has been able to survive for 5 pages without anything terrible happening, it just means the task wasn't that high priority. And finally, the very last one for 5-Year Club video number 148, how will you know when it's time to take a break? What is your criteria for goofing off? You need this criteria. You need to plan for it ahead of time. Because if you task master your entire life and schedule everything out hour by hour, minute by minute, always doing something productive, you're going to get sick of living. You're going to get sick of your life, and you're going to burn out. You're not going to want to do it anymore. And when you burn out, you're not going to be productive because you're just not going to have the emotional energy to get through some of the harder tasks. Another thing about it is that creativity is a huge part of long-term productivity. Figuring out better, newer, not newer, but like novel, different, efficient ways of doing things. If you stay stuck in the focused world of kind of linear task mastering, you're not going to be exposed to enough different things at one time to connect different ideas, to be creative and generate these interesting, better ways of doing things. And so goofing off time is essential for long-term productivity. That doesn't mean that you spend all your time goofing off. But it does mean that you make sure that you break up your life so that if you know that you've been really like task mastery for the last 5 days, then you don't do anything for half a day on a weekend. It's okay. It's going to work out. But you need to take that time because if you don't, then you're going to just get really bummed out. And sometimes when you get really bummed out in that situation, you start thinking that being bummed out is associated with your long-term goals, when really it's just about you need to veg on the TV for a while. You need to go to, a movie, I want to say convention, but convention's not the right thing. Like a movie festival this weekend. You need to go on a hike. You need to play with your cat. Just you need to do something to goof off because your brain has been too stressed for too long. All right, that's it for the talk on time management tonight. I hope that was helpful. I hope you think about some of these things and discover something that maybe you need to stop doing that's taking up your time, or intentionally decide on some kind of scheduling system, or another scheduling system. I don't think I mentioned it, but just like if you put like a whiteboard on the wall and you just constantly fill it up with stuff and then cross off stuff and then you look at it before you leave every day, that's also helpful. Everything is helpful. Too tired. I hope something in this video was helpful for you. Rewatch it later and try to get even more out of it if you can. And otherwise, have a fabulous evening.